Everyone, quick note. I brag later about how good our sound was, and it really did sound good when we were doing our tests, but for some reason one of the mics weren't picking up, so I am only picked up in Steve's microphone, so it's very low, and I apologize. All the bugs should be worked out by next episode. On with the show.
Welcome back to WRPL, the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Today is episode 26. I don't think there's really anything significant with that number, so...
There's 26 days in every single month, at least.
You know what? That's right. So this main topic, we're doing movies with months in their title. Now, today we're going to talk about a new release, finally, after weeks of nothing in the dead of winter, just garbage stuff.
And boy, what a way to come back.
Yeah, with the big action adventure blockbuster, Uncharted. We're also going to talk about a couple of other movies, some TV shows, some books. We got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we've been consuming.
Yeah, for once, listening back to the previous episodes, it's just like, what do you got? Nothing. Let's just move on. It was nice to actually watch some new stuff. So where should we start? I'm gonna start.
Okay, great.
Okay, well we'll talk about Red Rising first.
Sure.
So you suggested this many episodes ago. I don't remember which one. Let's say 17.
Sure.
And you suggested it. You said it was one of your new favorite books.
It is.
You've continued on with the series?
Of the trilogy, I finished the first trilogy, the Red Rising trilogy.
But not the other two.
But not the next trilogy.
Oh, I thought there was only 5.
There's 5
now
out. Yeah, I think the third one is coming out later this year.
Okay. So I didn't hate this book. I enjoyed it. It was fine. I just was expecting, I guess, more sci-fi, because it's set in the future, it's on Mars, spaceships, and all these, they're able to, like, modify this person to be indistinguishable from the high race of the society. And then here comes the big tournament where we pit all these planets and the best golds on all of them together, and it's horses and swords and castles and moats, and it's just like, really? I wanted cool sci-fi weapons, and they do have some, like, they have special shields and boots and stuff, but not everybody gets it. And it makes sense for the character to be able to lead these people even in the most dire situations without all the fancy technology, but it's not what I was expecting, and I was kind of thinking it would be a rated R Ender's Game where all their little tests are kind of deadly, but they're played off as like games, but it is proper preparation.
It's closer to a rated R Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunger Games, you could, I guess, essentially make rated R, but this one's more sci-fi, but not by much.
Yeah. And so I was a little disappointed with that, especially since everybody's name is like Cassius and Lucius, and characters come and go, and sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, was that the twin brother, or was that the one with the smart alecky mouth? It's my own fault. When you listen to an audiobook sometimes, maybe you're not paying attention to every little thing said. But, and I'm not going to say this was a hard to follow story, but sometimes it felt they rushed through some things and then just dwelled on others. And some of the big battles and him taking over other armies were just a couple of lines, and it's just like, oh, we're just getting into it, and you're already moving on to something else. Not a whole lot of surprises, but I knew there was going to be backstabbing and character reveals. It's just that type of story, and I could definitely see it being adapted, and I think it would probably be better as a visual, because I think you have to kind of really ground the rules of what's going on to make it work in a TV show, and I think things will make a bit more sense. But I am interested in continuing. I would rather go, especially since you said the next one was even better.
Yeah, I would say that, well, as much as I like the first one, 2 and 3 are definitely better, and they go full-blown sci-fi.
Cool.
I mean, they're still very much using sort of energy like swords and heavy armor, like Gears of War style kind of stuff. But it's space battles and shooting out of giant ships that hold like 100,000 people, and like drilling into the side of other spaceships so you can like take corridors and have these energy blasting. Like it's all very it's full blown sci-fi Game of Thrones in book 2 and 3. The first one is very much, I think, this. I don't know if it was designed to sort of, this will bring the teen sort of audience in, but book 2 and 3 is, we're full blown adults essentially now, and we're leading armies and doing really impressive stuff. I don't remember how much we talked about it on the podcast when I brought it up, but if I had one complaint, is just how good at everything Darrow is.
Yeah.
Just seemingly with like, and I mean, they go over like when he was going through his transformation and they were altering his body, like he was studying the whole time, and they're like, you got to know all this stuff.
But he's also naturally gifted.
But he's just naturally gifted. Yeah. I mean,
suited for this. He's the perfect specimen for this uprising.
But it was funny. They might go over it in later books, but they talk about it where he is, I look back on my old body and just see how weak I truly was compared to these people. But he was still like the best of these people. So it's like, even though he's the best suited for it to go through this operation and become who he is, he's still super weak. It's the strongest ant becoming human, essentially. And it's like, so were you really that well suited to?
I guess
it's a fine,
because there are some people who are like over 7 feet tall in this story.
Yeah, everyone pretty much. If you're a gold, you're at least 7 feet tall. So I imagine if when the series of the films of this come out, that's one of the things they're going to retcon, because they're like, we can't have all these people just be giant all the whole time. I mean, I'm sure they'll get tall actors who are physically fit and gorgeous and everything to be these characters, but I don't think they're going to just be towering over everybody, all the films.
That'd be funny if they just all the production design, it's just all the tables are a little smaller, all the doorways are a little smaller, just to really...
I mean, yeah, they could Hobbit Lord of the Rings it, or maybe just have all the golds in one room and photo impose and do all that stuff, but that just seems like so much work to...
Sure. You hire only 6 foot and above people for the golds, and then anybody else, or red or whatever, they have to be 5'3" and under.
And under, yeah.
Yeah, that 5'3" person may be playing someone who's like 5'11", but no.
Yeah. I mean, and you could definitely, I don't know how gravity and science work, but you could be, living on this planet made these people naturally small, or like they couldn't develop muscles.
Sure.
Whatever. Science mumbo jumbo.
But I enjoyed it.
I mean, do you have a favorite character? Book one's kind of...
No, they're all the same. They're all just hulking masses of like brilliant, funny, sexy people. So I guess Mustang.
So like us.
Yeah, yes, exactly like us. I guess Mustang, because she was pretty tough and knew the game.
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd like Mustang,
but I don't really. It's like if I have to.
I mean, these characters definitely develop and get better as the story goes along. I mean, Darrow, for the most part, kind of stays the same, but he learns lessons and he fails a lot of time. I mean, he failed in this book a bunch, but he always found a way to win.
Yeah. He was
Severo is obviously going to be the fan favorite.
Sure.
He's the tiny one, even though he's still bigger than
the 6'7" little
the 6'7" guy compared to the 7'2" or whatever. But this little tough scrappy kid who's like fuck the establishment, but wears a wolf pelt and is gross, but he's also just like the most badass dude in the whole crew. He gets, I mean, every character in this really gets a lot of really cool moments in books going forward. So I think you'll be really impressed. Well, I hope at least you'll be impressed with future books. But I totally get what you're saying with the first book.
I think I was really into it up to the point where they're put through, what was it called, the passage, and you got to kill the person in your room. I really liked that scene and the scenes meeting up, but it's like, as soon as they started the game, it just kind of went downhill for me and was just not nearly as interesting as everything that came before it.
Yeah, it's when you have kids doing politics, and there's chapters where you're essentially just kind of prepping for these big sequences. It can be kind of a slog. I don't want to say a slog, but you're kind of just waiting for the next action beat. But I think when the action beats do happen, they come so quickly, and I think they're written in a way that's like the second they're happening, I'm like, oh, okay, I can definitely see like how this plays out on screen. With a horse ambush essentially is really cool. These kids are storming castles, and the other small issue I would have with the book is you just have this looming threat of the jackal the entire book, and then that is kind of, I mean, there's a cool scene with him when he's finally revealed.
Yeah, and stabs his hand through the table.
Yeah, he's just a complete psycho. It's like, oh, there's a reason this guy is kind of a legend after a couple weeks in this place.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, it's like an entire year through.
Oh, well, yeah, I know, but very quickly established, like, oh, have you heard the jackal? He's done this horrible, horrible thing. It's like, none of us are supposed to kill other people, and he's just like,
I don't care. Yeah. I'll trap you all in a cave. I don't care.
And you find out his deal, and he becomes a very interesting character going forward. But I just loved the end as well, just the storming of the Olympus. I thought all of that was really cool, and I don't know. To me, it was the most cinematic book I've read of last year. Okay. Obviously, when you're reading a book, you're kind of imagining, at least for you and I,
as cinematic as you want.
You're making you're in your mind. You're going, okay, this is the movie that's playing. But I don't know. I think it's easily transferable to screen, and I just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about it and how you said, him and his wife really love each other, because I was kind of weirded out that they were so young. But man, will this guy ever shut up about his wife? Just every 10 seconds, just ew this, ew that, and just get over it. She's dead. I'm just kidding.
Well,
but he brought her up a lot, and it's like, we get it, you're mourning, but let's focus.
Yeah, I agree that he does talk about it a lot, but I think at the same time that is the one sort of, that's the catalyst for this whole story. That's the reason he has to go on. It's the only thing he has to hold on to, because no one knows that he's alive except for like 3 people, and all of them he won't see until he gets done this thing that takes place over a year or two.
So he doesn't ever meet back up with his handlers until it's all over. Did they ever slip him a note somehow, like, you're doing good, kid?
Well, I won't say anything, because for when you read the book, I'm just saying, like, he has no interaction with anyone, theoretically, until this is all over.
And there was a part where, like, he had to kill a dude and that was on his team, and he slipped up and he said the wrong word. He's like, oh, this guy's a red too. But they don't ever go further into that. Like, did his handlers have multiple people in the fray? Why wasn't that mentioned?
I'm not gonna spoil anything for you, Ben. I mean, I can if you really want me to.
No, the book should be coming in a few weeks.
But they do address that, if I remember correctly.
Okay, that's good. All right, what have you been consuming, Steve? Well, before we get into what you're consuming, I just want to say I'm sorry for all the really bad audio issues we had in the last 2 episodes, but hopefully these will sound a lot better. But yeah, got new mics.
And headsets. We're
kind of professional.
Yeah, we're
at least like the visual right now looks professional.
Yeah, we're upgrading. We're getting there.
All right, what do you got?
Well, I finished a book. I read a lot of full-blown novels last year, and I started another one, and I'm liking it, but it's also 800 pages, and I just kind of wanted to do something easy. Okay. And as I was walking through Walmart, I saw a D&D book for ages 8 to 12. And as a fan of D&D, it looked cute, and it just came out. And that book is called Dungeon Academy, No Humans Allowed, written by Diane Walker. And so the story is about a young girl who is found as a baby by 2 minotaurs and is sent to... So in this version of the D&D world, all monsters are trained at a school, very much like Hogwarts, to be the creatures that fights and battles humans. And because she was raised by minotaurs, she has to go to school, so she wears horns on her head. I mean, she looks like a human, but no one... they say that no one really questions a Minotaur because they're so big and strong and tough, especially two. Also, the two Minotaurs, women. So she's got two moms. There. Fun fact for you.
But she doesn't have Minotaur legs.
No, well, she wears a tail and she wears horns, and no one questions it.
But, okay. Okay.
Like I said, they kind of just breeze over with no one will question. One of her moms works at the school, and that's kind of part of the reason why she's there. And she kind of suspects that all the teachers know, but because they trust one of her Minotaur moms, they're just like, all right, we'll let it slide. And like I said, none of the kids seem to really notice for whatever reason.
Is she like a lot shorter than all of them too?
She's the smallest Minotaur. I mean, she's the only one at the school, so I think that kind of helps too. Mm-hmm. So there's not really other people to really compare her to, other than her mom, who's a grown one. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's silly. It's a kid's book, but it is actually pretty enjoyable, I thought, especially if you're a fan of D&D. Lots of references. It's got pictures in it. And it's just her making friends. Like, she's kind of a loner and she likes books. She's your classic sort of spunky young girl who kind of stays aside but doesn't like bullies. So if she sees someone kind of getting messed with, she'll like, even though she doesn't want to get involved, she will, because that's just who she is. And some of the students go missing. And so her and her new friends kind of go out and want to try and save them. So yeah, she opens up this book. She sees this legendary female warrior who looks just like her, and she goes, oh, this must be my real mom. And so her and her monster friends go out to investigate what happened to the other students that have disappeared, and they're worried, like, oh, maybe they've heard adventurers are nearby in the nearby forest.
Are both of her friends both Minotaurs?
No, so she has an owlbear friend who, for those who don't know,
I don't know what that is.
It's essentially a bear with an owl's head.
Huh.
Kind of a classic D&D monster, but he doesn't eat meat. He's a vegetarian, so he gets picked on for that.
Of course.
And then there's a kobold, which is kind of like a little lizard man who has a shield, and his dad is sort of a legendary kobold, and he's got this rickety shield that looks like one hit to it, it's going to just shatter to pieces. But this is kind of like his symbol. It's even got like a little engraving on the side, kind of like a Thor's hammer, like he who be worthy, shall wield the power of the shield or something. That's not the exact line, obviously. And
is he in the shadow of his dad and he's got to live up to such a legend?
He was not really a bully, but he was picking on this mimic who's also part of the group. And the mimic's kind of the smart one and knows all the facts that they all need to sort of survive out there. But the kobold, he wants to live up to his father's legacy, and so he is sort of the bravest one in the group, but he's kind of like the reckless, just, I want to do action thing, and that's can get them into trouble.
Okay.
But long story short, they discover there's a necromancer plot, and she meets her mom, and her mom is doing battle with the necromancer, and she's kind of like, will I go with her? Will I stay with my monster friends? Are we all going to survive this? Because the necromancer is planning on essentially trying to take over the world for his master, who you don't find out who that is. But there's a scene in this that also almost made me cry, and which is weird because of all the books I've read where there's mass death and characters who I've spent hours and hours with, and this book that I finished in 2 hours, essentially. Maybe not. Maybe it might have taken me longer, but it didn't take me long to finish it. Yeah, that little kobold, he's about to sacrifice himself for his friends because the necromancer has this like giant wall of fire, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll get us through." And they're like, "No, your shield is like a piece of shit. You're gonna die." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. Just like kind of follow me." And as he's going through the flames, the shield is actually a magical shield that his dad gave him, and because he became a worthy hero monster kind of thing, it changed, and he was able to go through unscathed. And I don't know why this worked on me as a grown man, but I was like, my like lip was almost quivering. And I was like, oh my god! Like I was at work too, and I was like looking around to see, make sure like no one saw me be this weepy little baby. So I don't know what that.
Having feelings, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know what that says about me because I never have feelings. This is the thing. that got me. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was a cute little adventure for kids. So if you're a fan of D&D and want to pick up this book, it's super simple. You could either read it to them or they can read it themselves. And it's not, even though it's for kids and by no means bloody or anything, like they talk about swords and killing and all that kind of stuff. Like has some adult stuff in there without being obviously gory or super violent or anything. But yeah, fun little fantasy adventure.
Of different stories each time. This is an ongoing series.
So this book came out in November, so just a couple months ago.
Okay.
It definitely lends itself to sequels, but as of right now, as far as I know, it's the only one that is out. There isn't other like D&D kids books like this. Like they have a D&D ABCs book for smaller kids or a 1, 2, 3s with D&D.
That's cool.
Like yeah, so they have some. The D&D franchise has obviously gotten bigger in the past couple of years, and so I think they're branching out into the publishing world and going to make stuff for a variety of age ranges. But right now, it's just these 3 books, as far as I know.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to check that out. No, it sounds good, and that's something like if you had it here and you told me to borrow it, sure, but
Yeah, I mean, you could really finish it in just a couple of hours, and I do have it here.
oh shit.
Haha!
Fuck.
Now you have to read it.
All right, fine. All right, so I watched a movie, a Netflix exclusive. I was actually like waiting down to the last second before it uploaded. It's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ugh.
And it's not like I was super anticipating this or anything. It was just, it happened to be like 2:57 and it wasn't available on Netflix yet. And I knew it was going to come up at 3 o'clock, so it's just like biding my time and refreshing it to see when it popped up. And as soon as it popped up, I watched it. And I would say this is a movie you don't need to like stay up for.
Wow, no way.
Surprising. Since most of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres are not that good, I'd say there's probably 3 that I really like. All the other ones are just stupid and excuses for gore and implied nudity. And this is very much that.
Yeah.
This is a movie in name only. I mean, it has its references and it brings back a legacy character. Like, that's just the thing now. Scream's doing a Jurassic World, Halloween, everybody. You got to bring back a legacy character. But they just fucking kill her. Like, she has Leatherface with a shotgun straight to his head. She could do it, but like has this moment of like, oh, he doesn't even remember me, and then of course doesn't take the shot, and then ends up getting impaled by a chainsaw. Like, well, that's what you get.
Yeah, I mean, I have never seen a Texas Chainsaw movie. I'd be willing to... Not even the original. I'd be willing to watch the original. It's just I've never actually had the opportunity, I don't think.
Okay.
But what surprised me about this movie is that I saw a trailer for this 2 weeks before it came out, and I don't think there's anyone famous in it, right?
The most famous person is the young girl from 8th grade. She's in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's not going to make me watch it, but...
No, but as I'm looking at her, and it's like, I know that face. Who the hell is that? But she has, like, black hair in this.
Oh, okay.
So she looked... And, you know, it's been a few years, so she's
Right.
definitely older. But besides that, I don't think so.
Yeah, it just seemed like a movie that was kind of rushed out. And like, oh, okay, we have the IP. We need to make a movie, otherwise we lose it or something. We'll give it to some music video director. I mean, I don't know who the director is.
Yeah, I looked him up, but there was...
We'll cast some nobodies and hopefully make some money off of it.
This is a $5 million movie because it takes place in a small abandoned town of Harlow, which is just like one street, and it looks like a backlot movie set.
Sure.
But it's easy to go like, well, this was such a small town. Of course it was just this tiny little thing. You don't need anything bigger. But this, even though this town is so small, with the population, I think they said, of 1,974 at its time. Now it's a ghost town. It has a city hall, a movie theater, and an orphanage, all on the same street. One street.
Yeah, how many I don't even know where an orphanage is in relation to me.
Yeah.
And we live in a city of 500,000 people or whatever it is.
Yeah, I have no idea how many people live here, but seriously, is this because it's such a abandoned town and not many people? Are people just driving in and dropping their kids off? I'm like, well, they're not going to be able to get
It's like a
back
box
to
of
us.
puppies that they can't take care of and then just throw it on the highway.
Like,
they do that with the kids
They got a
here.
movie theater across the street. They'll be fine. So this town has bank foreclosures, and these young people are selling it to other young yuppie Gen Z people to make this kind of a startup town, and everyone's going to have their cute little shops, and everyone will want to be here because it's just like the cool new hip place. And of course, Leatherface has been hiding in this orphanage with the head mistress there. She's been keeping him safe because this is a direct sequel to the first one. So the lone survivor of that first movie, she has now become a sheriff, and she's been hunting him down for 50 years and hasn't been able to find him because he's just been laying low this whole time. Well, these entitled shitty people come in and they're like, hey, ma'am, you're not allowed to live here. We own all this, so you need to get the fuck out. Like, well, I have the deed. Doesn't matter. She has a stroke. They put her in a van. Leatherface gets in, and then one of the kids, who we don't learn much from, she seems like the nicest out of all of them, gets in with the cops, and it's like, we'll go to the hospital and do this. So the shitty kids are feeling kind of bad because, like, oh, did we go about this the right way? And then when the woman dies, they're like, oh crap, we caused her death. We've kind of forced her out of her home, but whatever. So woman dies, sets off Leatherface, and he goes on a killing spree. He even cuts off her face and wears it, so he has an old woman face. This one looks pretty good.
Now, just to be scary, or is it to pass as
No, it's
a
never
woman?
to pass.
Okay.
It's like he always hid his own face.
Right.
He just hides behind whoever.
I wasn't sure if they were trying to do like a Lecter thing at any point. It's like, oh, this old lady's hurt, even though it's this giant man who's...
But like in the first one, he has his kind of like scary, I'm going to go kill you mask, and then he has his more womanly, painted up with makeup, I'm playing the mother role at home mask. So he has, sometimes it does make sense. For this, it's like, no, mom's dead. I know I'm about to go on a killing spree, so I gotta wear a face. So it might as well be her face. This movie doesn't have much to it. It's just a bunch of annoying characters you don't like and you want to die, and then watching everybody die one by one. No one's really likable, but there are some fun deaths. It's very CG gore, CG blood, but some of them are pretty good. Like, there's one, he grabs the top of his wrist and he breaks it, so his forearm bone is sticking out, and then he shoves it into his throat. That was pretty cool. Just a lot of, good chainsaw action. And it has a really kind of silly and sad and funny ending that kind of parodies the first, and you just got to see it. Lots of good blood. Oh, this one guy gets his knee smashed with a hammer, and it goes backwards, and it's just, awful looking. But this movie's dumb. It's really stupid. I would watch maybe Texas, what's it called? Is it just Texas Chainsaw 3D, the one with Daddario? That one's not bad. That's one of the better ones, and it has the Daddario in it. So I would not recommend this one. If you have seen them all and you just love seeing people get killed by a chainsaw, watch it. It's on Netflix. It's free. But don't rush out. Don't cancel plans to watch this.
Real quick, 15 seconds. Do you have an idea for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre that you would like to see? Just throw it out real quick if you got it. Just the basic premise. I don't need scenes or anything.
No, it's gonna be let's do like a Wes Anderson kind of comedy where he's on the run and he has to hide in plain sight. So he's wearing faces of people around town, and everybody's just like, "Hello, Jim." He's still carrying around his chainsaw and bloody clothes, but he has the face of the mayor on, and everybody just thinks he's the mayor, and he has to hop from person to person, and it's just
The
silly.
Texas Chainsaw tomfoolery.
I mean, when it comes to it really is a simple premise. You go into the house, it's a family of cannibals, you're not supposed to be on their property, they kill you. Doing any more, like there's a movie called Leatherface where it gives you the origin of why he is the way he is, it's just not interesting. It's like the Joker. You don't have to give him a backstory. It's all inferred. Crazy, Texas rednecks that are cannibals. And then this big monstery dude, of course he's going to end up that way. That's just how he's right. You don't need any more details on that. So, no, I mean, this movie would be fine if just the characters weren't so annoying. If you liked them and you feared for them, but you just want them all to die. They're all just real entitled, annoying people. And they went into his house uninvited and killed his mom. So, yeah, of course I'm rooting for Leatherface now.
Yeah, I mean, I get the concept of, oh, here's a bunch of people who we as the filmmakers purposely want to make you not like. So when they die, it's satisfying for you as the viewer. But if I don't like them, then I have no investment to whether they live or die. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can do a cool death and be like, oh, that's fun, but I'm not engaged in the story or anything. It's like you can make them kind of shitty people, but you need to give them something that makes them relatable or sympathetic. Sympathetic. Yeah,
there's one thing. The other sister, the actress from 8th grade, she was the survivor of a school shooting.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really do anything with that, and it's like, okay, I feel sympathy for her, but then she's going for the AK-47 to try to stop him. So, are you pro or anti-gun in this movie? I'm not sure what their purpose of having.
Well, if it's Texas, even if they're anti-gun, they're still pro-gun.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think it wants to say something, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what they said.
Guns don't kill people. Chainsaws do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's just it. Yeah, so that's it. That's it for that. You know, not good.
All right, hard pass on Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, or I would say fast forward it until Leatherface is on the screen, watch him kill some people, and then keep fast forwarding.
Gotcha. I imagine this hit at least some theater. Did this get a release at all? No. This was straight to streaming?
Straight to Netflix, yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did say it was Netflix. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of, I don't know what you have next. What do you got?
I watched... Well, we can talk about this on another episode if you want.
We said we were going to do it 2 episodes ago, but we never did, and we did the Oscars instead. So you went and did it. I did not commit.
Okay, so fuck it. We'll just talk about it.
Yeah.
And when you watch it, we can dive deeper into it.
Okay, then sure.
If you have any other additional thoughts.
I'm not rushing out to see it right now.
So I watched Jackass forever. I was bored and had nothing to do, so I popped over to the local theater and saw a lovely little comedy. And I mean, it's definitely the worst one in my opinion. Not because it's bad, it just kind of feels their age has caught up with them. Mm-hmm. Like they're still doing stuff to their bodies where you're just like, Jesus Christ, like it's hard to watch because they really are hurting themselves or they really are doing gross stuff. It doesn't seem as extreme as previous ones. These are stunts that are just, I feel like a little bit safer, I guess. And I mean, I found myself laughing quite a bit because, I mean, these guys, they've been doing this for a long time, and they're all best friends. So watching, I think, a group of people who love and care about each other doing extreme stuff together is always kind of endearing. But the most penises I've seen.
It's a penis revolution.
2022 or this past 21-22 is the year of the penis. There's so much penis happening right now.
Yeah. Penis is so hot right now.
Yeah, the opening scene, which was directed by Spike Jonze.
Doesn't he do most of them, or?
I mean, he's in all the Jackass movies. How much his involvement outside of a producer standpoint, I'm not sure. I don't recall. But all these films have a big opening number and a big closing number. And so this one was a Godzilla story. Nice. Where a giant monster is attacking the city, but it's Chris Pine's penis, his flaccid penis that he has on strings. And so you're watching this monster attack, and it's painted like a green lizard, and it's got this, his hairy balls right on the street, and it's shooting cum on everybody. Kind of like it's Godzilla breath. So everyone's just getting coated in white goo, and so a quick scene will play out, but then it'll cut to them making the scene, and it's just Chris Pine is naked, like with his balls on the table, and he's got strings that he's like puppeteering the like little arms and his like flaccid penis on, and it's just so ridiculous, and everyone's just kind of making like laughing at him as he's doing this. I mean, it's a fun sequence. It definitely seems like it might have been the most expensive one they'd done, but who really knows? But yeah, there's this movie, like all the other ones, had parts that made me kind of flinch, because I didn't want to imagine the pain. There's a bloody ball sack at one point that I was not a huge fan of. There's not as much gross stuff, but still gross stuff that, you know, is very gaggable. They also included they have like the new crew who's coming in and kind of like, oh, they're the new generation of jackasses. I don't think this is trying to launch a new series with these folks at all.
Because they're all doing their own thing, so they don't need the Jackass brand. But it's like, you might as well bring in the guys doing our thing.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's like we'll bring in fresh blood, and because people have seen us do a whole bunch of stuff, let's bring in some new guys and, you know,
share the load.
Share the load, yeah. But all the new guys, I think one guy really kind of gets the worst of it out of the new people, and everyone else kind of just does like smaller
Is it the big dude?
stunts. No,
Really?
It's a guy named Poopsie.
Oh,
Yeah.
adorable. Is it a little poodle? A little white poodle with a pink bow?
Nah, I guess the best way to describe him is sort of redneckish.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a slur we're allowed to say anymore or not.
No, you can say redneck. There's no white slurs.
But I mean, one of the things is him and Chris Pontius take basically two pieces of plastic and like with screws and flatten their penis out to like paper thin.
Oh my god.
And they're like, dude, like, does this hurt? And he's like, weirdly, it does not. Apparently, you can flatten your penis out like a cat going under a door. You know?
Like Mr. Fantastic.
And they're like playing like ping pong on him and stuff like that.
God.
Like with these like weird dick paddles or whatever. Or like at one point, I think Pontius had a ball with a string, and he was doing like that thing with his dick. It's so stupid. But the new girl, I think her name's Rachel, they put a scorpion on her, and like she was getting her lip and face stung a bunch of times by the scorpion.
Did she look awful afterwards?
No, it was... I guess I imagine those kind of things take time to really...
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was de-venomed or whatever.
Yeah,
so it's not,
they had the anti-venom right there.
I imagine it wasn't even venom. I imagine it was... The scorpion didn't have any venom. It just was the stinger.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay.
But
shit.
well, it was just getting stung by a scorpion, and
Yeah,
I mean, she was a real trooper about it.
I'd do that over getting a snake to bite my face.
Yeah, but it was called like Botox, the Jackass Botox or whatever it was called. But yeah, it was fun, and it made me laugh, and it's nice to see these guys, but. They've come out and said this is definitely our last one. I think it probably should have just ended with 3, because I think 3 ended so nicely and played like the footage of, you know, their decade of doing this, and this is another 10 years after the third movie, or at least after when they started. So they've been doing it for 20 plus years now. So I mean, they played some old footage of them like when they were in their early 20s and everything. So it ended well enough, but I think that the third one was so much more romantic to the whole Jackass brand.
Yeah.
And Bam, who they said was not in the movie, he was in one scene, but he didn't talk, and you really kind of had to look for him.
Yeah.
But he was in it technically. Yeah.
So say you have to go through all these things. For some reason, you have to go through all this, but you can not do one of them. What's the one thing you absolutely would be exempt from?
See, I'm not a fan of pain, but I think I would much rather do the painful thing, because I feel like maybe I could surprise myself or like kind of get out of it. And not get out of like doing the stunts, just, you know, the bull hits me or something,
you can
and
get over it.
I can kind of like time it in a way where like maybe it doesn't hurt me as bad as it could have, but something that's gross.
You would even do the pogo stick on your testicles over drinking pig semen.
Well, I think the problem with that is if I know that the pogo stick is gonna like cut my ball sack.
You don't know that.
Well, I know, but I'm saying if I knew that was gonna happen, then I'd be like, probably not. Just give me the pig semen. But if you're just like, oh, we're gonna take a pogo stick and jump on, because I mean he's wearing a cup the whole time on all these ball hits. Mm-hmm. It's just how much damage you're gonna take through the cup. I think I would just like, well, let me risk the cup because chances are it's just gonna hit that. The shock is gonna hurt me, but it's not gonna like the pogo stick isn't gonna go through the cup and pierce my junk.
I feel like they would just miss and they hit my rib and then they poke a hole into my lung with the pogo stick. Like, fuck my balls. Like, any part of my body with the pogo stick seems deadly. I'll drink that pig.
I mean, that's like the easiest stuff. I mean, this isn't this movie, but Steve-O in the porta potty with all the like poop flying up. I don't want to be any part of that. Yeah. Or
I do a second shot of pig semen instead of the porta potty.
Maybe because it just popped into mind. But you know what one I would have zero desire to do? Like I've seen people do the bee beards or, just cover a certain part of their neck. And, as long as you're kind of like not really freaking out, they don't sting you that bad. But there's one in here where they just put hundreds of bees like directly onto Steve-O's penis and balls. I don't think I could have the bravery to do that. Because, I mean, he was getting stung. Yeah. Maybe he wasn't getting eviscerated, but he had multiple bee stings covering his balls and penis, which I don't think I would have. The second one stung me, I'd start freaking out.
I think I could do that over, like, the fastball pitch to the testicles. The boxer punch to the testicles. I think I could do the bee, because that's mind over matter. Just be cool.
I mean, technically, all pain is mind over matter kind of stuff.
I don't think I can overcome.
Once again, Danger Aaron, who was doing all the ball stuff, he was wearing a cup every single time.
Sure.
But it was still hitting, And he was taking hits to his legs from the fastballs that, don't quite miss or hit their mark. I'm sure that there's a stunt that I'm blanking on, but I love this franchise and I love these guys, and it's fun to see. I don't know if we'll ever get this kind of thing again, so that's kind of what's sad about it ending. I'm glad to see people do this and not so I don't have to.
It's just like people who clean up animal roadkill or proctologists. It's like, thank God that there's someone who's okay with doing this thing, because I absolutely could not. Like, there are people who you call in because a homeless person took a shit in a dressing room floor. You call this person in to clean it. Like, thank God there are people who are willing to do that sort of work, because I am not that person.
Oh, there was... once again, we can cut all this because we kind of talked about it. But there was one where they had a tarantula, and you saw it in the trailer where it's two guys wear the plastic helmet and you have to, like, try and get this tarantula to go to the other one. That wasn't bad. The loser, which was Aaron, had to let the tarantula bite them, and they like made him bite his nipple. But it was like a close-up of these things, giant fucking fangs, and they even added a sound effect where it was like as it went in, and it just seemed awful. And I know it's probably in retrospect not that bad. Yeah. Maybe the pain doesn't even linger after 10 seconds, but just seeing these raptor claws coming out of this goddamn thing's mouth. Disgusting. Spiders are the worst.
I can totally handle that. You take the snake bites, I'll take the spider bites. How about that? Next time we're in a Jackass sort of situation that we always get into, you do the snakes, I'll do the spiders.
Okay.
Deal?
I'd almost be interested in taking a snake bite just to see. Yeah. Like, not anywhere super... Like, I'd take it in the leg.
Yeah. I think my buddy Luis said... Like, he wouldn't mind getting stabbed or shot sometime in his life. But so he could say, like, I've experienced it.
I mean, I'd be interested, but I feel like even if it's someplace non-fatal, there's a strong chance that it's like a lingering effect.
Yeah.
So you're going to, you feel that stab wound on Weathertop for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's never quite healed, Sam.
So... A show that I started watching during the early days of the pandemic finally had its final season. I believe it was a TBS show, and it got bumped around, and now it's on HBO. It's a Search Party, which, if you've never heard of Search Party, It's 4 friends. They 2 are dating. 1 is an actress, and 1 is a gay guy. They are kind of, it's pretty typical for a lot of shows like Sunny or Seinfeld that, these characters are the worst people. And they're not nearly as bad. They're not, they're just bad in different ways. All of them have their own flaws. But the main premise of the show was the lead, Dory, sees a missing person poster, and it was someone they went to college with. It wasn't one of their close friends, and she was actually, like, not the nicest person, but she just kind of gets fixated on, how could she just disappear and nobody knows what happened, and it kind of becomes her driving force, and she goes on this quest to find this woman. And 5 seasons go on, and I would have never been able to guess where this show ends up. It's almost like if you were watching Cheers, and then in the final episode, they're abducted by aliens. And everything that led to that made total sense. Like, out of context, it's very bizarre. But if you watch the show, every season is different and weirder and weirder, and this last one is just, it goes super gonzo. I think they understood that this was going to be their last season, so they might as well go all out. I'm not going to spoil it because I would have never seen it coming. But all these characters are really fun, really likable, just really funny. I know I suggested the other 2, and you eventually got around to it and liked it. This isn't to that caliber of comedy, but these characters are kind of in that same level of likability, and you want to watch them. So I recommend it if you like the other 2, but it is not the same show.
Yeah, it's one of those shows I think I've seen online with critics talk about it. For the very few people who see it, whether critics or audience see it, they're just like, yeah, it's good. It's worth watching. It's different and interesting, and it's flying very under the radar. Which is amazing that it got 5 seasons anyway.
The first season when it came out was like the secret smash hit everyone's talking about, and I was like, I gotta get to it. And then I kept seeing commercials for newer seasons, but I didn't see the fanfare any longer. And especially for this 5th season, they just dumped it all released at one time. It was just like, here, we're done. Our hands are clean.
Shut up.
But yeah, definitely check it out.
Oh, alrighty.
Yeah. All right, before we get to our main topic.
It's not even our main topic.
Before we get to our main topic.
Oh! Forgive me.
We are going to talk about Peacemaker.
Peacemaker.
One of the best shows to come out of 2022. Probably my favorite
2 months in, it's one of the best shows.
Well, I could absolutely see this show reaching my best of the year. Best characters, funniest moments, great scenes. There's a lot to love. And even if the show was not very good, we still had that intro, and that intro is enough to consider it
a great intro. Yeah,
I do think some of the lighting is weird. Like, he doesn't hit certain marks where he's lit up, I think, properly, and I don't know why they use those takes. It could just be me, and maybe I don't know anything about the technical aspects of lighting a dance number, but some just seems like, it would be one thing if it was like all one take, and it's like, well, everything is good except for that first beginning part. We could deal with it, but they cut a bunch of times, so I just don't know. I just don't know.
So
what I'm saying is worst show ever. So did you have any expectations for this show? I know you liked Suicide Squad, but I don't remember if you really liked John Cena in it, if you like John Cena in general.
I guess in general, I have nothing against John Cena. I think he has grown into an actor that I do like. It's just interesting seeing these giant muscle men who don't look like normal human beings interact with normal body-shaped people. I don't even know what you would call them.
Humans.
Just regular humans.
Just regular old people.
Yeah, with a plot that's based on aliens taking over. Like, he's the weirdest looking person. I mean,
those arms, they're huge. Yeah. He's got like the smallest lower body, but his arms are enormous.
Yeah. I mean, his arms, I think, could very well be bigger than his head, which
is huge on its own.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a very handsome man. This isn't like he looks weird like in an ugly way. It's just who. It just seems why are your muscles this big? Like who is this for? And like obviously like that's the thing with wrestling.
Fans.
Yeah, it just I don't know. It's crazy. But that aside, yeah, I really liked him, and I really liked Vigilante. You said you really liked the characters in the show. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much the other people in the show are characters.
Yeah.
But I liked the parts that they played, and I liked all the bits with them and how they all interacted with each other. Like they all complemented him and the story very well. I just wouldn't say that they were fully fledged characters per se.
I absolutely. Just even with little thing like with like Economist, he's just like, oh, the tech guy, and people make fun of him. But just that little speech at the end where he admits to having to dye his beard and why he does that is enough to like fully fledge out who he is as a person. He's absolutely a character. And the blonde whose name I can't remember. Harcourt. And just like the scene in the bar where the men are harassing her and all she wants is a drink, and Peacemaker thinks he's being so charming by offering to sleep with him, and she's just like, I can't even catch a fucking break. And you get who she is and how her life is and everything with Adebayo and her wife and mother. I think everyone is a pretty well fleshed out character.
No, I mean, I think
not the cops, but the cops are pretty one dimensional.
Yeah. And I don't mean that they're not good
well written characters.
Yeah, I mean, they all have their moments, and like I said, I think that they work really well in the show and work well with him. And James Gunn does a good job of like taking a character and finding something that makes you like them, even though they may be presented as a sort of one-note character. Mm-hmm. I mean, he made Guardians of the Galaxy where you have a character who just says, I am Groot the whole time. And
you feel everything he says.
But you feel everything he says. Or, he has his sacrificial moment at the end of the first one. And you're just like, oh my God, Groot is beautiful. Like you're crying over a tree person. And it's ridiculous. So, I mean, full credit to him and everyone in it. I just, it's not like they really delved into other characters. But it's not about them. It's about Peacemaker. So that's all I was saying. It's like they have their moments, and I enjoyed all of them on the show. It's not an ensemble piece. It's the Peacemaker show with Vigilante and his crew.
I disagree.
But, I mean, that's just my take.
Pause. Is that your water?
No.
Damn it. Oh, it looks so good.
A small child's mouth was on this, I believe. So.
Thank you for saving me.
But, yeah, I liked Suicide Squad, and when this was announced, I didn't care at all, and I wasn't even sure I was going to watch the show, to be honest. But I really didn't have anything else that I was really watching. I was like, you know what? Let me at least watch the first 2 episodes and see what it's about. And it surprised me, and each week I think the show got better and better with each episode. And I was wondering how they would handle a character who, while I liked him in the Suicide Squad, it wasn't like he was a good person. He was a murderer, but they quickly made him. Yeah. I mean, he was killing for the right reasons, in quotation marks, but they made him essentially the nicest person on the show in a roundabout way.
They handled him being a murderer and a piece of shit, but also a nice guy. And also a bad guy at the same time. It was a fine line to walk. Yeah. And James Gunn is just great at that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's easy to sort of forgive his kind of character when your dad is the ultimate racist piece of shit. Yes. And okay, that's why he's like this, and he hasn't had many friends and social interactions, so that's why, he may say some things that are inappropriate, but they call him out on it, and he learns from it. It's like, okay, I do want to be a better person. Yeah. I don't want to say inappropriate stuff. Even though he doesn't admit it, his best friend is a sociopath, vigilante who's a legit murderer who has no problem, who loves killing women and children and whoever in the name of justice. And he's like, yeah, man, sometimes we get it wrong, but you've got to break some eggs or whatever. Just no problem with it. And definitely, obviously, the breakout character of the show.
Yes.
And
I don't think all of his jokes work.
Oh,
but when they
no.
do, they're really fun.
I think he's got the best stuff. But at times it's like, there's no way this guy is sort of this stupid. Yeah. He's the most cartoony. But I love his voice. The fact that it's like so dorky, but he's actually this super well trained killer.
Yeah,
is real interesting. And it's not like I don't think he was like in the army or anything. He just practiced.
I think because Peacemaker always said like, oh, it's so and so's little brother, like his friend's little brother. So he probably saw Peacemaker go off and do things and said, I can do that. Hey, if what's his name, Chris Smith can do it, I can do it too. And then just start getting really good at it.
Tell me what you think.
I really enjoyed the show. I'm a little bit opposite when it comes to episode. Actually, I think after episode 3, I was not as engaged. I think once they reveal that it's aliens, I started caring a little bit. I wish this was a simpler story. A
little bit more grounded.
And not a end of the world sort of thing. Especially since he just came from a movie with a big alien starfish. That
was taking over people's minds.
Yeah, it's just too similar. A simple assassination that he, ends up messing up or accidentally killing kids. Something, maybe even killing a superhero. If it was, say, Green Arrow, and he's always trying to get him, and he keeps missing, or whatever it is. But just another alien invasion, even though it was more of a we come in peace sort of thing, even though, some of you are going to have to die, but we do come in peace for at least the greater good. So I
wasn't really expecting that last minute twist either, which, I liked. And I liked that he didn't waste any time, really. He was just like, nope, you're going to die. Yep. I get it, but you're going to die.
But then also having a scene later going like, shit, did I really do the right thing?
Right.
Did I just condemn us all? And I like that he's a really conflicted character. In the first episode, I think the best scene of the entire season is him laying in his bed and just breaking down crying that he killed Rick Flag and you're such a piece of shit. That's why nobody likes you. Like coming to terms with these things, and he's just crying his eyes out. It really got to me. I believed it. And he's kind of this shitty character, but you see he's trying to do better, even if he's a little dense about it. And I really like that character, that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Adebayo. It's nice seeing Casey from Orange is the New Black doing things, because she's like the best character of Orange is the New Black. She's just such a good actress, and she's funny, and she just brings so much life into this. I can see other castings in this and making it really cringy, and she's great. Mm-hmm. I wish I knew that actress's name. She's tasty.
Danielle Brooks.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Yeah.
I know some stuff.
You know that name, but then when we're trying to think of the name of his dad, what's his dad's name?
Oh, the real life actor? Yeah. Damn it, I was thinking about this too. I was like, I'm definitely going to forget it again.
I can't even think of it now. Like, I'm looking at you
We've done
all
this
smugly. Well, I don't know. It's not Patrick Wilson's, not Jason Patrick. No,
we always do a
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick, yeah. God damn it.
Can he be like our spokesperson? Can we put we need a cork board here for all the things we need to stop saying, our little ums and ahs, and then names of actors we constantly forget.
Robert Patrick, just the biggest one right on there. I mean, I have a cork board. We can make it happen.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. Just, the things like, or something, or whatever.
Do's, don'ts, notes,
topics, funny references.
Well, like I said, I have one. We'll bring it out.
Oh, that'd be cool. We can get our actual podcast studio.
So, what do you think? So, I know how you feel about giant cow alien monster, too similar to starfish.
Also, it kind of looked like the big moth creature from Monsters vs. Aliens. Is that what it was called? That CGI?
Yeah.
You remember there was a big, caterpillar Godzilla creature? Didn't he kind of look like him without fur?
I do know there was one. I don't remember well enough.
All right. Well, tweet at me if you thought it looked like it, because it did.
But speaking of Robert Patrick, what did you think about his character and his
he's
secondary villain status.
I mean,
Did you like the white dragon?
It was goofy. He's got little like Iron Man flying blasters that blast right over his hands and feet. I don't know how that works, but whatever. Good character as a person more than his supervillain. I don't like the costume, but I like having a big clan member type character.
Yeah, I feel like that could have been a cool season of, like, if you got rid of the alien storyline and just had a smaller, it's Christopher Smith versus white supremacy.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, my dad is the leader of the white supremacy. Like, that's a season of a show.
Yeah.
But really, it was just kind of a background thing, just an extra problem he had to deal with while dealing with an alien invasion.
Yeah.
Because, like, with the family struggle and everything, maybe they wanted to kind of avoid that a little bit because, like, is it too topical? Does it seem like we're trying to...
But they didn't shy away from any of it.
But yeah, they didn't shy away from it. But yeah, I agree that the costume was a little silly. And even more, like, I'm okay with the costume more than... I just don't believe this guy invented a pocket dimension where he's inventing all this crazy stuff. Like, nothing about this guy screams to me super genius.
Yeah.
But he clearly is.
Yeah.
But he's just also a giant racist piece of shit. It didn't track with me.
Yeah, normally they say if there are aliens out there that can do interdimensional travel, they've probably gone to an intelligence so beyond to be able to understand that science that they would have moved past petty things like racism.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think, says the opposite. That doesn't happen. You could be the smartest person in the world, but hey, if you don't like a certain people, you just don't like them.
Yeah. And, like, if he was, I don't know, if he, smartest intellectualist, or I don't know, whatever the racist version of being smart is. Like, I'm so smart that these people are beneath me. I just also happen to be white. Maybe my whiteness has given me this intelligence.
Maybe.
So other races are like, maybe I could, because they don't really go into why he is the way he is.
No,
he just has a mullet. He's just a racist piece of shit who just happens to invent this
knowledge.
stuff. Yeah. I just want to know, is there any particular reason? Was it just his dad was racist, so it made him racist? Because Christopher Smith's dad was racist, and he's not inherently racist. Like, he said some racist stuff in the show. But, yeah, I want to know more about racist people's mindset and, like, why they believe this nonsense.
Well, you look at any comic book character like the Red Skull's pretty much a Nazi and he's a smart dude, and Apocalypse, he has his whole thing about the only the strongest will survive. He has his own prejudices and he's a very smart person.
Yeah, but
yeah, you don't see Mr. Fantastic using racial slurs or something like that.
but at least with the example of Red Skull, he didn't want to necessarily eradicate Jewish people, though, didn't he? He was just like, this is just a means to do my experiments.
I don't think they specifically hold on to the Jew aspect with Red Skull. It's more of yes, there is a superior race, but it's not necessarily... Actually, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know the comics that well, because I feel like in the movies they kind of...
Yeah, he's probably a big Jew hater. I'm sure he is. He's a German...
It was a different time, Ben. It was a different time, war and everything. Whatever. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's just interesting that they had this character and they could have done a lot with him, but really it was just kind of a secondary foil to the main storyline.
Yeah, there was an X-Men comic where this alien race came down called the Brood, and they were very much like the Xenomorph. They looked like Xenomorph and Starship Troopers, more like on the ground bug-like, but kind of long head like the Queen aliens. And they would lay eggs in people, and they laid an egg in this southern preacher who would just preach under a tent and to all the young people, and he was a healer, and he was able to make crippled boys walk again. But it was really the Brood alien inside them had the special power to do it, and it was get the congregation big and full, and then we're going to impregnate all of them. So if it was something like that, like the aliens came down and they infected Chris Smith's dad and got all of his clan buddies all riled up because they're like, well, if we could, these are people we can infect easily, and they're already in the police and they're already in the government, whatever. I think that could have been a fun way of doing it, but no, they went with like, oh, we're peaceful, but we're just trying to get a cow to a different location.
This, we can also cut the just as a side note, I want to know the ramifications of this town area, because, well, one, they killed all the racists, or well, not all the racists, but all the clan members that were closely associated with White Dragon, which, cool, all for that.
Yeah.
And then they also mowed down the entire police force, so like 70 cops are now dead. And how do you explain that? Because the show kind of just went, well, my mom made me blame Peacemaker. Peacemaker actually saved the day. And it was kind of aliens. It was alien or whatever. They
don't have to explain anything. They say
it's Project Butterfly. She came out with the nose. That's right. So he's justified it because they were no longer essentially human anymore. But just imagine like you wake up and then suddenly doesn't have any police because every single one of them got. Oh shit! I said where we live. Bleep that.
Oh yeah, I will. You want to just take the whole thing over? Make it easy.
Imagine
waking up in our town.
Imagine waking up in our town and then the entire police force is just mowed down, all 1,000 of, or however many. I don't know how many cops there are.
You were underestimating the population of where we live. You said like 500,000 people, 1,000 cops.
I don't know.
I think you're like dividing by 10. I think you need to go higher.
Okay, 5,000 cops, or we just don't have cops in our area anymore. Does crime just go rampant, or does other police forces? I mean, I imagine they send some people, but like, how do you?
Would be here, and everybody would probably be freaking out because there was like huge explosions.
Or do you not commit any crime because it's like, oh, well, Peacemaker's on the prowl. Took out an entire police force.
Oh no, I guess if you live in the town where Vigilante is there, you try to be on your best behavior. Like he was killing people for smoking pot
or jaywalking.
Jaywalking, yeah.
A crime's a crime, man. But yeah, enjoyed the show more than I thought I was. I would happily watch a season 2. I hopefully see them do something different. I don't need to see them fight aliens again.
No. Like, they can just turn this into a Task Force X show. Like, we need you, Peacemaker, to lead the next Suicide Squad, and you just do a Suicide Squad mission where they have to go to some foreign country, kill a diplomat, whatever the thing is. It doesn't have to necessarily be Peacemaker and this team doing Peacemaker vigilante things. They could expand this out.
Yeah. I guess hardcore, not hardcore. What is Adebayo? Yes. I could see her being the new leader of the team. Like she's the one who hands out the missions, kind of thing. And then obviously hardcore is the
Rick Flag of the group.
Yeah, the Rick Flag of the group. And then you have Red Beard, whatever they call him.
It's not Matthew.
Diebeard. Yeah.
No. What's his name? It's not Economist.
Economist, yeah. He's your tech guy. Like everyone has their roles. Yeah. So yeah, there's the potential there, and like I said, I'm happy to watch it. Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. Yeah, Do I think it's the best show ever? Not even close, but it was a fun ride. Yeah,
for a comic book show about a D, maybe even E-list character with F-list characters working with them. They do a pretty good job, and it just really shows if you give creative people creative control to do something interesting, you can get something fun like this and not just the same old.
Yeah. And just as a side note, also has a very comic accurate costume, which when you look at the comic, it's like, that's going to look stupid. And in a sense it does.
Sure.
But I think that works for the character, but also in a weird way, I think looks good. I mean, once he takes off, it's the helmet piece that's really kind of the silly part. But I like that there's multiple versions of the helmet that did different things.
I just always thought it was a helmet. I didn't expect it to do stuff.
Yeah. Which I don't know if the comics it ever actually did.
It has.
But the stuff they did with it was fun. And some of the bits they had with, it floating away and torpedo mode. And they did some fun stuff. So that was cool to see. I feel like there was one joke I wanted to... Well, let me just say. Also, Judo Master, what was the point of this guy being in the show?
Yeah, he's my least favorite character.
Judo Master felt like it didn't need. You could have just.
He got his fucking head caved in, by economists. Like, he bashed him over and over again, and the guy still lived.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine he's coming back for season 2. Maybe they're just like, okay, we're going to keep him in here. People are going to get to know him, maybe even like him a little bit, and then he's really going to shine in season 2. Like, he's going to be the vigilante of season 2 in terms of breakout character that you fall in love with.
Maybe.
But it just seems like this is a character you could have easily had in one episode that they fight and then kill off. Because, it's like, oh, look, we're bringing in this somewhat famous comic character, but he didn't do anything.
Yeah, he didn't do anything. So, 2 things. Season 2 has already been greenlit. They're going to have to change that intro because some of those characters aren't alive anymore. So do you want them to keep the song New Dance or new song and new dance?
I think I would want a new song, new dance.
I think so.
I think everyone... no matter what they do, I don't think it'll live up to the first season, and everyone's going to be like, man, that first season's intro was the best. And so, but that's such a small nitpick. Like, if your biggest problem with the show is, oh, well, the intro is not as good as the old intro, then just shut up. But I think if you did every season them doing some weird dance where their face is stern, but maybe next season it's, a slow song, like I don't know, does Heart have a slow...
Sure.
Songs. Just some sort of 80s slow pop ballad, I think could be kind of fun, but also them doing like a weird interpretive dance to that.
Yeah. And there's also rumors that there's going to be another spin-off show from Suicide Squad. Most likely Ratcatcher 2, or I've even heard King Shark. I like King Shark, but I don't think he needs a show. If you're going to use him, save him for Aquaman or something. Do we really need to follow this guy's story? But Ratcatcher 2 has a pretty interesting backstory, and I'd like to see where they could take that character. But I don't think she needs her own show either. Just bring her on to Peacemaker.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I don't need to see any of these characters have a show, but I said that at the beginning of Peacemaker. It's like, this guy doesn't need a show. Plus, he died in the first movie. I know there was a post credit where he was still alive, but it's like no human would have survived that. Like, that guy's dead.
And then he only had a broken collarbone. It's like, he got shot in the throat. They don't even mention. Yeah, we fixed your vocal cords and your collarbone. It's just like, no, just your collarbone. That's all.
He's fine. So if they do make other shows with other characters, and it's of this quality, maybe I can get behind it, but I also don't want to keep track of 5 hero shows based off of the Suicide Squad's characters.
Sure, yeah.
We'll see. So we'll see.
What do you think of Justice League showing up at the end?
I thought it was fun because I didn't expect them to come, and I like that 4 of them showed up, even though you really only saw 2's faces, which I think neither one of them were in the same room at the same time.
Oh, definitely not.
They definitely got them on 2 different days and just...
They showed up to the Aquaman 2 Lost Kingdom set, and they were just like, oh, you're on break? Here, just stand in front of this green screen and say, shut the fuck up, Barry. Okay? And go. And we got it. Yeah.
But it was nice that they actually had some connective tissue, because the only part that I think you saw in the entire show was him stabbing Ric Flair and
Rick Flag,
damn it.
Woo!
And him saying what a joke, and so that was the only connective tissue really to the DC universe. So here's this added bonus, and plus, when have we ever seen a character tell the Justice League to go fuck themselves? So that was kind of fun. But
I think it because some complaints I've always heard is like, well, once you have an Avengers movie and then Thor goes off to do his own thing and he's having trouble saving the world, why don't you just call in the Avengers? That's always the thing. Just call in the Avengers, Spider-Man. You can't handle this on your own. Just call the fucking Avengers. And so it's nice to see where it's like, no, we did, but it was all for nothing. They showed up too late. We already handled it. So that was nice.
Which, obviously, one, Superman can't be everywhere at once, but the dude can travel the entire planet so fast, or Barry can. So if Amanda Waller called one of them, they could have gotten there and helped out while the others were assembled. It was just like, oh, well, we'll call Superman or Barry last. because we need to get Aquaman from the bottom of the ocean. We need to call Wonder Woman for wherever she is, get her on a plane. So we'll assemble the crew and then send them at the same
last
time.
5 minutes,
Yeah, it's like you could have just called Barry. He would have been in there in 10 seconds, and then probably
just
did everything.
Yeah,
because he basically would have just had to punch all these people one time as hard as he could, and they all would have died. Problem solved.
Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, that's nitpick, stupid stuff.
Yeah, well, we definitely both recommend Peacemaker. Good show. I will definitely be tuning in for season 2. All right, on to our main topic.
I can't wait to talk about this one.
I actually can. I really don't care if we talk about this movie. We talked a little bit. We saw this together. We normally don't watch movies together anymore because of our varying schedules. We're talking about Uncharted, the video game adaptation starring Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland.
Well, first, before we get into it, Ben, what's your relation to the Uncharted video game franchise?
I love Uncharted. It was one of the first PS4 games my first PS3 games. When I acquired my PS3 years after it was out, I think it was even maybe a year after the PS4 was out, I was gifted it by an old roommate. And I was able, I shouldn't say it's my first game. I played God of War 3 and other things. But this, I got the collection for it for a gift, and I just blew through 1, 2, and 3 just back to back every day after work. And I loved it. I played this game a little bit when I was living in Vegas, and I was so bad at it. The controls for the gun were really loose, and I didn't know about turning down the sensitivity because I was just like missing every guy. Was just like a foot away from their head. I was just whipping around, and it's like, this game is so annoying. But once I got those levels filled out, I'm like, oh, okay, this game is not that hard. It's just a big fun Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider type game. And here's my favorite thing about the Uncharted game. There's no leveling up. There's no skill tree. There's no upgrading of weapons or anything. You have a gun, you use it till you're done, or you go to a cutscene and you lose it, you pick up another gun. There's no saving it, there's no adding a special scope or a silencer, and there's no adding your grip strength for climbing, speed, and things. None of that. It is just like the most simplified, perfect video game. And I love it. And I love all 4 of them.
Do you have a favorite? Most people say 2.
Yeah, it's like probably 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I love 4, but there were parts in 4, like when you're driving around in the Jeep, I didn't want to do that. Some of it was just like, okay, this place is big. Just tell me where to go. I don't want to find all your stupid secret things. 2.
That's one small part. A very big game.
And was it in 3 where they introduced the rope, or is that 4?
I believe it's 4.
Okay. Well, in like,
I could be wrong, but I believe it's 4.
I think in 2 and 3, you're able to pick up grenades and throw them back at people. You can't do that once you get the rope, and that really hurt. I got blown up by a lot of grenades.
Yeah, that was probably the most satisfying part of 2 and 3 was the ability to throw back grenades. Yeah, so my experience with the Uncharted franchise
No one asked, Steve. We're moving on to the movies now. What's your experience with the Uncharted games?
I'd have pretty much a very similar experience. I remember when the first game came out, I was at a buddy's house and he was playing it, and I wasn't quite paying attention. It was just him shooting random minion guys in some forest, and I was like, oh, this looks kind of fun, but whatever. I didn't think much of it. And then I eventually got a PS4, and I saw that they had the Uncharted Collection, all 3 games for $50 or $60, whatever it was. And I was like, oh, I've heard great things about these games. Let me check them out. And I did the same thing. I played them all back to back to back, and it was one of the most fun gaming experiences I've ever had. Like, the first one is good, but it definitely looks dated compared to the other ones. And I feel like each game kind of got better and better. I get why people love 2 so much, because people weren't a big fan of all the desert stuff in 3.
Yeah.
But my favorite is actually 4. And the reason I like 4 the best is because the first 3 games are all based in some mythical aspect, which I have no problem with. I liked all the sort of magic of...
Yeah, there's like a Bigfoot in one of them, or you think it's a Bigfoot. Isn't there like weird chupacabra monsters or something?
Yeah, there's monsters and there's, you know, magic lands and all this.
It's not as magic-y as Tomb Raider, though. It's all like fake magic. You think it's one thing, but it's not true magic.
I mean, you're not like opening the Ark of the Covenant and stuff like that, but like, there is things that
a plant that heals death or anything.
But in the second game, that guy has plants that make him, you know, heal and immortal or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Anyhow. But you like 4.
But I like 4 the most. 1, I really like the addition of Nate's brother, even though he was never mentioned in the first 3 games at all.
And we had flashbacks.
Yeah. I like the rope stuff. It's one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. I didn't mind the Jeep stuff. I think the combat was improved across the board. It's just Naughty Dog is so good at taking at sequels. Like they are great at, okay, well, first we're going to focus on story and make sure this is a story worth telling, and then how can we take everything everyone likes about the first game and make the next game, all the mechanics of the game, better. And I think they progressively got better, and 4 is just the pinnacle, and it ends perfectly, and it's the one game that you could totally see just being based in reality. There is no twist, there is no big, I mean, there's twists in terms of story, but there's no grand lost thing. It's just, I got to get my brother back, and we're looking for a pirate ship, essentially, which we'll get to in the movie. But it's Uncharted, the game series, is one of my all-time favorite game franchises. So I had a feeling this movie was going to ruin it. Not the games, but just a black spot on the franchise itself. Just another mark against video game adaptations, and it was.
I agree and I disagree. I don't think it's all that great, but I don't think it does so much damage that people will look poorly upon the series in general. I don't think it's even like the Tomb Raider movie wasn't all that great. It was fine, and it played pretty close.
Don't dislike the Tomb Raider movie.
I think Uncharted is better than the Tomb Raider movie.
Okay. I didn't have as much love for the franchise of Tomb Raider.
Sure.
I mean, I liked the new trilogy, but I think you could have done anything with Tomb Raider and it wouldn't really have upset me, where Uncharted seems like it would be the easiest thing to adapt.
Sure.
And they just didn't do that.
Yeah,
not that I wanted adaptations of the game specifically.
But they hit the main notes. It's globe-trotting, treasure finding. There's a little bit of like modern day. Even in 4, there was a heist at an auction, right? At one point, and they do that in this movie. Big crazy stunts that people would not be able to survive from. That's Nathan Drake in every single game, every chapter. So I think it gets the main guts of Uncharted correctly.
But it doesn't get the spirit of Uncharted, or not necessarily.
It just doesn't have the character.
Yeah.
And that's mainly because of the casting. And I love Tom Holland. He's a great Spider-Man. I've enjoyed him in everything I've seen him in. But this is not his role. This is not Mark Wahlberg's role. And at one point, Mark Wahlberg was going to be Nathan Drake, but he kind of aged out of the role.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that would have been better.
For sure.
You put Mark Wahlberg in there, and then you put
I saw Stephen Lang getting
a
lot of cat. I mean, he was the Sully in the fan-made one with Nathan Fillion. Yeah.
It's just one. I've always said Mark Wahlberg is awful. I like Boogie Nights, but it's not because of Mark Wahlberg. I don't think I like anything because of Mark Wahlberg. He's pretty funny in I Heart Huckabees. I'll admit that.
I like him in The Departed.
Sure, and that's what everybody says. But it's like he is a third-level character that all he does is cuss a lot, and he just has very memorable scenes. He's not really all that good. You could have put anybody in that role doing that same thing, as long as they have that asshole Boston accent. It would have been fine. Mark Wahlberg didn't bring anything to the
Donnie Wahlberg should have been Sully.
Donnie Wahlberg's better than Mark Wahlberg. He's only in like 2 things, but he's great in both of them.
Hey man, and he's a member of New Kids on the Block,
Hell
one of the
yeah.
all-time great boy bands.
All time.
Yeah, but anyway, back to the movie. Yeah, it's weird. Who they cast as Chloe, I think, looked like Chloe. It worked for me, and she was age appropriate to Tom Holland's Nathan Drake. But like I said, it's just your 2 main stars who are essentially the main 2 you bring in from the games, who should be the most accurate to the games, are just weird choices.
Weird.
And I think they have good screen chemistry. I would see a buddy flick with these 2, or I would see another heist movie with these 2, where it's like, oh, they team up. Mark Wahlberg's the old school guy who's like, oh, I've done these kind of heists. Let me show you the ropes, kid. But when you make it into the Uncharted movie, it's just like neither of these guys scream Nathan and Sully.
Yeah. Nathan Drake is very seasoned and well worn, and Tom Holland just feels fresh out of the oven, and he hasn't really earned the cred to be that sort of smarmy Han Solo type character. He's still a kid. This is like his first adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first Uncharted game, Nathan is in his 30s, and
he's done this already. He has
traveled.
a
He's done the Indiana Jones thing for a while now, where this was just his first foray in this movie.
And if say 10 years ago we got 3 good Uncharted movies with Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake, and this was their rebooting of it, and said, we want to take it back to the beginning, early days, Nate, I could have been perfectly
Batman
fine.
Year 1.
Yeah, it would have been perfectly fine. I'd be like, okay, well, we already had our good Nathan Drake. Let's do the young version. Cool. I'll even accept Mark Wahlberg. But it's almost like they think they're going to get 5 more movies out of this over the next 20 years, and they're going to age into those roles. And by the time we get to Uncharted 6, he's going to be a perfect Sully, and he's going to be a perfect Nathan Drake. And I don't see us getting a sequel to this.
No.
It's not bombing as hard as I thought. It's doing okay, but it's not making the huge money. And as I've said before, this is my big bomb of 2022. It's not going to make its money back compared to other bigger movies.
Yeah, and I'd like to point, I think in recent years, there's been a positive shift in filmmaking where they are trying to cast more accurate, if they're adapting something, whether it be a book or a game or whatever, they're trying to adapt it in a way that is faithful in terms of finding people that look like the characters and can really capture the vibe. Where this just felt like, oh, well, this is a studio movie. Who's 2 big stars we can get it? It's not. It just felt like a studio knows, like, oh, well, we wanted to cast these 2 unknowns to lead this franchise. It's like, well, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Cast whoever's hot right now. And
we're Sony. Who do we got? Well, Tom Holland is our bread and butter.
Yeah.
So.
And Mark Wahlberg will do it for $10 million or whatever. So, yeah, it just felt like they didn't care about that. It's like, we just need star power, which there isn't really. I mean, obviously there are movie stars, but I don't think anyone really buys a ticket too much to see anyone specifically, except maybe Tom Cruise.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's like
that kind of fad of I'll see anything because it has this person. I'll see any Brad Pitt movie because he's Brad Pitt. I don't think people care about celebrity in that way.
Yeah, anymore. I mean, you have people like Clooney and Pitt, but Clooney and Pitt aren't doing crowd-pleasing movies. They're doing Oscar stuff, and Oscar stuff is oftentimes not for everybody. Yeah. And then you have, I mean, everyone watches the Marvel movies. Yeah, that's every cast member, you know their names and you like them in their roles. But even Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., who are the biggest people, like outside of the Marvel movies, are people lining up to see a Chris Evans movie? Yeah. Like, are people coming out for Puncture or Push or A Perfect Score? Obviously, these are movies that came out before.
And I love that they all started with Puncture, Push, and
Pilgrim, Scott. Nah. Yeah, and outside of Doolittle. I don't remember a Robert Downey Jr. movie that came out in the past. The Soloist, maybe, but no one saw that either.
No.
It's like no one's coming out for the biggest outside of the biggest Marvel franchise. All those actors, no one's coming out for anything but their Marvel shit.
Yeah.
It's like you might see it if it's a good movie and they just happen to be in it, sure, but no one's buying a ticket for them.
I saw Knives Out not because Chris Evans was in it. I saw it because all those people were in it, and it's a good director. But yeah, I don't think not Clooney. Downey Jr. has made anything that's not Marvel besides Doolittle. I think he's so rich now from all those Iron Man appearances. He really doesn't have to do anything. I don't know why he did Doolittle. That couldn't have been a passion project. it was the cheapest, ugliest, stupidest movie, and they pulled a bagpipe out of a dragon's butt. And like, why? Why'd you need to do that? You just got $5 million for doing like Spider-Man: Homecoming.
That's a pretty good Mark Wahlberg impression you're doing right now.
Oh, okay, let's talk about Mark Wahlberg.
What a character. Everything
this guy says in the movie is generally question-ish. Even if he's not asking a question, it has that little bit of inflection that goes up. You know? That's just the way that Mark Wahlberg talks.
And I mean, Andy Samberg really ruined him for America because multiple times
Mark Wahlberg impressions until that.
But every time I see a Mark Wahlberg movie, he always has some line of dialogue where he delivers it in a way where I can only think of, "Oh, hey guy, how's it going? Yeah. All right, say hi to your mother for me, okay?" Yeah. Like that's all I can think of. It's just the way he talks, and I know that's not anyone's fault, but it's you and I and our friend were just laughing at not even funny parts. It's just the way he was saying things. It's, oh my god, like this guy can't.
We gotta get going. And it's just like, oh my god, how did he delivers his lines so oddly? And what was the Happening? I think The Happening is the best example of like really bad Mark Wahlberg acting. He's like, what? No, I didn't mean any of that. Huh? He's just so confused and baffled, and he
talks to a plant.
Yeah, but that's like the most extreme version, and then he has his more cool guy version, but he still sounds like a fucking idiot. Everything's just a question the whole time, and but it makes the movie extremely funny.
My other issue with this movie is, now once again, Tom Holland is a full-grown man, and I know he's got a very young face, and him as young Nathan Drake, I don't necessarily hate, but he was shirtless like 5 times in this movie, which like, dude's got a great body, good for him, showing it off for bringing in the lady audiences, but it just felt like because he almost looks like a child, that it just seemed odd. It's just like, oh, this is like your hero, not tough guy character, but you know, you're showing him with all these muscles and working out because like, okay, he needs to fight the bad guys. Like I almost, because he's so young, I almost don't buy him as the action star. Like I buy him as Spider-Man because Spider-Man has powers.
Yes.
But I don't buy him as the guy who's going to fight thugs throughout this movie.
And he's getting knocked around and blasted through tables and stuff. And I turn to you or Nick, and it's just like, they know he's not Spider-Man in this, right? Like, he's supposed to be just a dude. And yes, in the game, Nathan Drake takes a lot of hits. Yeah. But they really relied on, people know him as Spider-Man. He needs to be doing these crazy things.
Yeah. And obviously he's very fit and agile, and, you know, I think has come out and said he does as his own stunts, or at least as many as the studio will allow him to do, which I like, and I respect that very much. But it just seems like he was doing Spider-Man-esque stunts because he's also young, so his body can take it.
But he did come out saying that this movie beat him up more than any Spider-Man movie, because if they need him to do anything crazy on that, it's just CG. They use so many CG replacements. He doesn't have to do the crazy stunts, even if it is just getting like thrown against the wall.
And it is a guy behind a mask too.
And then there's stuntmen as well. And he said like having to have his face out and having to do these stunts for real, and like the plane sequence, he said, was one of the toughest things he ever had to do on film. I mean, that could just be marketing talk. But,
sure, yeah.
But I see where he's coming from, because you do see him doing all these things, and I mean, you probably can fake it, but it really does look like he's taking these hits.
Yeah. And, well, let's talk about the plane sequence, which is the sequence that opened up the movie.
It does the thing, one of the tropes where you open up the movie on action beat either somewhere in the second act, or it's right before the final act where, they do the, I wonder how I got here sort of voiceover. And I hate that because it's always a crazy situation where they have like a clown wig on and like they're missing their pants and they have like a purple triangle painted on their chest. And it's like, wow, how are we going to get here? The whole time in the movie, I think, well, how are we going to get here? And then when the first thing shows up of the clown wig, I go, oh, I see the chain of events. And so when you start a movie and it's like, here's the plane sequence, the whole time you're waiting, okay, when is this plane going to come in? And I think it just lowers a lot of the tension of a good action scene. Hate it when movies show us stuff from the end.
Yeah, and this is where I think two things come to play, at least from the director's standpoint. One, I totally understand. We got to start the movie big to get audiences, like just from the jump, they're excited. Like, okay, this is what the movie is going to be. It's going to be big action set pieces with ridiculous stunts. And it's also very reminiscent of the games, where each game pretty much opens up with a big action set piece. It's like, okay, that's to draw you in and be like, oh, I'm very excited to play. Because when you start a game up, you want to get to the meaty stuff. You want to get to the combat. You don't necessarily want to do a 30-minute cutscene and then get to the good stuff. You want to jump in right away.
Which they do excellent in the games, where every of those big scenes was your tutorial on how to play, and just like beautifully, seamlessly put into the game.
But I think that's where games excel, because, like you said, that's your tutorial. Where you don't necessarily need to do that with the films. Like, I think I would have been happier with just opening up with him and his brother at the orphanage or whatever. Because, and here's the thing, like that action set piece with the plane is pretty much taken directly from the third game, Drake's Deception, where you're hopping on these crates that are on the back of this plane or whatever. And it works in the game because you're already looking at a CG character, so your brain has already gone, okay, I can dispel belief on this because this whole thing is ridiculous. Like being shot 10 times and then your health bar goes down a little bit, but then you like hide behind something for like 10 seconds and then it's back to full health. Like games in essence are ridiculous. So when you're seeing a real person do the exact same stunts, even though it's taken directly from the game, you're kind of like, this is a Fast and Furious stunt. This is just ridiculous. Like, no human can do this. This doesn't make like the physics on this are nonsense.
He's leaping
and it's
when you're going 1,000 miles an hour.
The plane's doing 700 miles per hour, and this kid is just making his way up and doing these jumps. It's like, that's not how science works.
No,
At least I don't believe.
He would stand up and instantly get thrown off the back. He wouldn't even have to jump. And that's why, like, if it was crawling the whole time and he has to reach for it and he's pulling his body away and then he has to cut the ones behind, fine. But standing up and, like, running to the open bay does not work.
And once again, it's just, it's movies, man. Just have fun with it. Who cares if it? It's just, as an audience member, your opening scene, I'm like, I don't buy anything. I was rolling my eyes in the first bit. And then you get to the orphanage stuff, and I think some of the dialogue there and performances, I was kind of rolling my eyes in that too. I was like, 10 minutes into this movie, I was like, this is not, I already know what this is. And then you come with Mark Wahlberg, who's just doing Mark Wahlberg stuff. Like the whole, it was just like miss after miss after miss, even though that it had the bones of the story in the game I wanted to see. Just didn't have but the meat was rotten.
Can we turn that into a phrase? Had the bones, but
the meat was rotten. I'm into it.
I'm putting it on a shirt.
But anyway, moving on. Like I said,
so the main plot, Nate and his brother were separated as kids. His brother got him into trouble, and they were going to take him away and put him in juvie. So he had to run. So now it's 15 years later, and Drake's just a know-it-all bartender. He's a history buff because he comes from a long line of Sir Francis Drake. And
explorers, and his brother was a big history nerd and showed him the magic of history.
So then, of course, Mark Wahlberg somehow knows about this guy. It turns out through his brother, but he's the only person who can help do a thing. And the thing is, I gotta steal this thing. I gotta steal the MacGuffin so I can get to the next place to unlock the next thing to unlock the next thing. And so he brings in this genius history kid, and his plan is, well, I'll just turn off the lights and then you're going to steal it. Like, okay, whatever, that's simple. But then that goes awry, and the lights never get turned off, and he just walks up and steals it anyway. He just turns his coat inside out and steals the thing, and then fools all the other workers, go like, oh, yeah, I work here. And they're all like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, go right ahead. It is the dumbest, laziest heist I've ever seen.
Did not care for that sequence at all. The whole movie just felt kind of lazy. Like, it was clearly made with the best intentions, and they're like, we are taking stuff directly from the game, so you guys can't complain, but we're not gonna give you the details that would really enhance this. It's just, here's a cooked steak. It's not cooked well enough, but it's a cooked steak. So their heist was just ridiculous. And then they go to the Philippines or the East Indies, or wherever who cares? Or Brazil, and they have to go through these ancient tombs buried under the city, and so for the first hour of this movie, they acquire these keys. They meet Chloe. She has the other key. They go to this church and they unlock the secret door, and they go down this tunnel where there's booby traps, and then the tunnel leads to an underground nightclub, which normally would get played for a laugh, but wasn't really played that way. Just like, well, what's going on here? This is ridiculous. And I can get the concept of, oh, well, this is a city and there's plenty of open space down there. We can convert it to, and they didn't know it was leading to. It's like, so it's just like this tunnel led to a room that had a doorway across the way from the room, and I don't know,
there's a secret passageway behind the bar. And it's like, really? The place where they stock all the alcohol, they didn't trigger any sort of levers or see cracks? Or
like whoever they had to put in wires. It doesn't matter. It's just a
it's all Indiana Jones stuff where it's like, wow, they went through a lot of work to roll this boulder up a hill just so a person wouldn't steal one idol.
Yeah, it would have been funnier if they didn't find, because it just seemed like the keys were almost unnecessary. It would have been maybe funnier if they got to the place that they needed to get to and just like, oh, we're right here. It says we're right on top of it. And then they're like, oh, well, let's go down the stairs. And it just led to a nightclub. And it's like, oh, they must have we didn't need these keys after all. And then they find the doorway that they didn't have to go and do the extra step.
Yeah.
It was, here's a thing so we can make this club joke. And that club, God, the more I think about this movie, the more I'm hating it.
Yeah.
Even though I think that the movie isn't a bad movie per se. It's just a bad Uncharted movie.
Yeah. It's a perfect TBS movie.
Yeah. It's something you throw on in the background when you don't care that it's on.
It's like flipping through and you go, oh, Pirates 3. Did I like Pirates 3? I'm not sure. Well, I'll turn it on and I'll lower the volume. There'll be crazy pirate ship action going on in the background, and I don't really need to pay attention. It's absolutely one of those movies.
Yeah. And before we get to the final set piece, I guess we should talk villains. Antonio Banderas and do you remember the girl's name?
No.
I want to say like Paradox or something, but that's not it.
Antonio Banderas is the wealthy. He comes also from a line of people who have owned the cross. He thinks it's his birthright, and he's going after the treasure as well, or
the gold of the Magellan, I think,
sure.
or Magellan's crew after Magellan died.
Yeah.
And they had
go through a lot of work to hide gold, like booby traps and tripwires.
That's the other thing no one ever really talks about. It's just like how much, because all these games are going through like these giant temples that had to have been built over hundreds of years and established like
puzzles of light on the solstice comes through this special thing, and you have to line up the shadows right. Like, really?
It's a lot of fun
to get half of an emblem.
Yeah, it's always I need to do this thing to get one piece that leads me to another thing to get another. It's just temple or like puzzle after puzzle to get to this thing that a normal person, like, if you made one temple filled with traps, okay, I can buy that. But you made like 7 temples filled with traps and had to fight all these other guys
across the world. And why are you doing?
No one's doing that.
No one is.
No one, who has the time? Especially a crew of just 1,600 sailors. Those guys don't know how to do that stuff. Probably,
yeah. But
whatever.
Banderas, he just wants the thing, and he has hired someone that Sully knows.
Essentially a black ops group led by this young woman who may or may not have been in a relationship with Sully for a time.
Potentially.
Which I get, Mark Wahlberg's an attractive man and Sully's a ladies' man in the games and everything, but I couldn't tell how old this chick was.
No.
If you told me she was 21 in the movie, I would have been like, okay, I buy that. If you told me she was 30, I would have been like, maybe.
I would even go late 30s. Absolutely.
Yeah, she was very pretty.
She reminded me of Ruth Negga the whole time.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, when like there's a part where Mark Wahlberg is on top of her because they're fighting over, I think, the key or a gun or something, and she's like, "Oh, does this remind you of old times?" And it's like, okay, so Mark Wahlberg's clearly at least 50 in this movie. It's like, so was she? I hope she was at least 18, because if you told me she's 22 in this movie...
They're Hollywood ages. He's a man, she's a woman. It's fine. Don't look any deeper than that, because you're going to be grossed out.
But, so that was just a little odd, because I couldn't quite place her age, and the fact that she was the one leading this group, but it never gave you any, like... Yeah, I mean, clearly she was good with a knife and everything, but her becoming the twist head villain, where she kills the guy that she was hired for because she wanted to take the gold, which, like, I can get behind because, like, oh, there's $5 billion and you're paying me $1 million maybe to find it. I'll just take the $5 billion.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You usually wait to the end when the bad guy finally finds it and goes, "Haha, it's mine," and then you cut his throat. But it was just like, oh, we're still halfway through the operation. He's still paying for all this. Are they going to follow me if I cut his throat, or what? Or is the funding going to get cut off?
It just seemed like Antonio Banderas ran out of days to be on set.
Well, he did get COVID while they were filming.
Oh, okay.
He had to leave set for a while, but then he came back to continue shooting. But that could have factored in with how they
maybe that's what it was. Because it just seemed like he didn't need to be in the movie, because then it was just like, oh, he's dead, so I guess all of his money and stuff transfers to me, or it's like, you guys work for me now. And like, no one batted an eye that this chick killed this guy, and then because they're like, oh yeah, we all just work for it. It just was silly. There was not good villains in this movie.
No,
and that's a good part of the games. I think the games had good villains.
They have good villains while I'm playing, but I can't think back to any name or
no, I couldn't tell you their names.
They're just
either.
I want the thing as well.
But I believe they were characters. But I mean, granted, the game you're spending 20 plus hours with your heroes and villains, where this you have an hour with the villains. But
and then there's like a double cross on a double cross and a backstab. Everybody's backstabbing each other, and you think we're gonna work out and we're gonna be this cute couple. No, I'm gonna give you the wrong coordinates and I'm gonna backstab you even though you're backstabbing me. It gets a little tedious. I would love a con story or a heist story where there's none of that, because there's always a double cross and a twist, and then they become friends again, and then you think the other person's gonna do it, but it was actually a reverse double cross, and I'm just so sick of it. Can't you just do a fun action adventure thing where Sully and Nate are just good friends, and they just both have the same fucking goals?
Yeah, well, I think that's what you do going forward. Well, I mean, the first game was you think Sully betrayed you, and then you find out that he didn't. Where if you kind of did that with this one, so now you don't have that crutch anymore, unless my only thought process is that in a future movie you find out Sully has a daughter with some woman he had a fling with. It's like, so that's the only thing that would make him betray Nate, is like, I got to protect my family. I don't want to see that. I'm just saying, like, but now that you've done the Sully is constantly betraying everybody thing and the Chloe's constantly betraying everybody thing, now that they're a team, you can't do that anymore because no one's gonna buy it in the context of your films.
Yeah.
It's like we've seen these guys sacrifice to help the other person out. Sully wouldn't give up money to help anybody. He has all his gold, but then he did it anyway. So now there's no reason for him to ever do that.
Yeah.
But
so then we swing some ships in the air for a bit, and
this was the one part that I actually kind of liked.
for the action sequences, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously super very heavy CGI, but I thought it was fun. I think it definitely felt like Uncharted, and I like that it was an original piece as opposed to most of the other action set pieces, which were copies from the game. Sure. It was a little silly that helicopters were flying ships in the air. Sure, but I didn't
instantly disintegrating from just the wind movement.
But as I was watching it, the whole time I thought, man, I would have liked to have played this part in the game, especially just being on the ship, fighting goons, and then, you know, as you like knock out the last guy, the camera pans over and then you see the other ship like run into your ship, and then they're kind of stuck, and then you have to hop over to this ship to fight these bad guys.
Cut something loose.
Yeah, and then the ships come apart again, and then it's breaking, and then half the ship falls, and now it's like tilted because the front part isn't. So now you're holding on, and you have to climb up. You have to climb up the ship to the back, and then
light the cannons and blow the other ship apart.
Yeah, you're climbing up the chain to get to the thing, but then the ship hits you, and then you fall off of that chain back onto the original boat. Yeah. And there's a million things you could have done with it. And I was like, man, that scene is cool. That would have been fun. But once again, it's just I didn't care about. I just don't care about Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland in this movie. Yeah. They fought like goons that were throughout the whole movie, but there was the one Scottish goon or Irish goon, whatever.
Scottish.
But he was taken out, I think, by that point, maybe.
No, he was in the helicopter at the end.
Oh, that's right. He was in the helicopter at the end.
Which I feel bad for him dying, because even though he was a goon, it's like he had all these like mean tough guy things to say, but nobody could understand what he was saying. So he like never really got a good final word, and then he just died.
Yeah, they just fought a bunch of nobodies. I would have liked to. I mean, I guess they kind of thought that it was fine. Yeah. But overall, I liked the pirate ship battle sequence at the end. I wanted to. I think maybe the movie would have been served better if it was more stuff like that wasn't just carbon copies of the game. Sure. It's just a shame that it took an hour and a half to get to a good part. Yeah. And then the movie was over.
You know, they leave on a high note. As they say,
sure.
You know, win them in the end. One nitpick I have, and it's stupid. It's just his lighter joke that constantly he has this Zippo that never lights, and he pulls it out like 4 times and it never lights, and then of course he brings it out at the end. He gets it to light to shoot the cannon to save the day or whatever. It's a fine setup and payoff, but they did it too many times. You do it one in the beginning, you do one in the middle, and then you do the one that works at the end. But he does it like 4 times where it fails, and by then I think you kind of kill the momentum of the payoff, and it just
Well, yeah, I mean, the first time he does it when he's at the bar with the girl, you know, it's played off as, oh, well, I'm purposely not lighting it to do this.
Sure, to pickpocket her.
Yeah, to pickpocket her and do this, you know, banter bit. So that works. And she's like, oh, you should get a new lighter. It's like, no, this lighter works. And, you know, wink at the camera kind of thing. And then
it never works.
But then it never works. And then maybe you do one in the middle where it's like, oh man, this lighter doesn't, because I fell and I was underwater for a while. But even if you got rid of that middle part and just got to the end where, you know, he's trying to light it and he can't because maybe from the get-go, like it's purposely designed not too light, but it's all he had, and he just needed that one spark to light the cannon. That could have worked, but like I said, it was just multiple.
Too much build up for a smaller payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forgot about the cannon stuff. I think the cannon part would have been another fun part of that game. Yeah. Like, imagine...
Because I could see that being a thing where you swing over to one side so you can get the powder. Then you have to come back to your side to load the cannon, load the ball. And then after you blow it, it opens a hole. Then you jump into that side. You're able to undo a rope. And yeah, and you had guys on grappling hooks, like, swinging, like, and you had them having swords and stuff. And you had just so much cool game potential that... Maybe we'll see in a different series, not Uncharted, because now that Uncharted's over, unless they do more side character stuff like they did with the Lost Legacy game, which we didn't talk about, but also a fun little game with 2 side characters.
But ultimately, if I had to rate this movie, I mean, well, do you have any other thoughts before we kind of wrap it up?
This is a very forgettable, pretty much nothing of a movie. It's not so offensively bad that you hate it, but there's nothing that they do so incredibly good that it's going to be memorable.
Yeah. Definitely didn't need to be made, even though I've wanted an Uncharted movie. If we get a second one, I think it'll be a miracle. If we got a third, I think the second one probably would just solidify we shouldn't have made the second one even more. But yeah, this movie just doesn't need to exist. But on the plus side, it's perfectly adequate film to watch.
I gave it a C.
I'm gonna go C minus because I'm just adding my love of the franchise. That was also kind
totally
of bummed out.
justifiable.
So if I just had to rate it as like just a movie that isn't Uncharted related, C. As an Uncharted fan, C minus.
C minus.
A very it's barely scraping out the D plus
it's
zone.
A serviceable movie, but because of the bad casting, it's gonna go to the C minus. So,
yeah.
I'm gonna say C minus as well.
There is one last thing I want to talk about this movie. I would like you to tell our audience your joke about dogs. We didn't talk about his cat.
Oh yeah. Okay, so when we were talking about video game movies, we mentioned how in Rampage they had the perfect opportunity to do a "see you later, alligator" joke at the end, and sometimes you need to embrace the stupid little things. Mm-hmm. And I say that, but they could put in those stupid little things, and I completely roll my eyes.
Sure, but they're hit or miss.
Yes. So in this, he convinces Sully that he needs a cat for the job that they're doing, and then by the time he shows up, I'm like, oh, what's the cat for? Oh, it's for you. It's because you're a very lonely guy.
Which I'm pretty sure that Sully never mentions having a cat in the game. I could be wrong.
No, I don't think
but
so.
There's just an added bit for the movie.
Yeah. But it's not like he even shows up until the post-credit scene. So
yeah, which I guess they pay off this joke in the post-credit scene. But it's not a good joke.
Is it a joke? It's just I take my
look
cat
at this,
with me.
Look at this tough Boston guy with a soft little cat that I take him everywhere.
Oh, Mr.
It's
Whiskers or whatever his name is.
Okay,
so there's a part later where they show up on the island and they run into what's his name, Nolan North? No. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's just
a cameo by the voice of Nathan Drake.
Nathan Drake, and it's one of those things that if you don't know who this is, you would be like, why is this in this movie?
It's such a jarring scene. It'd be like, what the
and if you're savvy enough, you'd go, okay, this must be something of significance. I just don't know what it is, but it's so weird. And I think they could have cut that and had a small little joke instead. We see that he has a Naughty Dog sticker on his suitcase or laptop or something like that. And when he gets the cat, he's like, oh man, this cat's gonna piss all over the place. I mean, and it's like, that's the joke. It's just, oh no, we have to leave this cat behind and he's gonna pee on my stuff.
Which, like, anyone who's ever seen a cat, owned a cat, I mean, obviously, yes, there's cats who can do that. Yeah. It's like, they all use litter boxes.
Yeah. I mean, he probably doesn't have one set up. Right?
No, I mean, obviously he doesn't. Yeah. I guess that's what he was trying to get at.
Yeah, compared to like a cat and a dog will shit on the floor. The cat generally has a place where it goes. But anywho, if they just would have changed it to a little dog and made the same joke of like, hey, don't you go pissing on my floor. Don't you be a naughty dog. Boom. That's enough reference to the video game that you don't need to put
a fun little line to the game, yeah. Perfectly eye-rollable, but I liked it. I mean, I get the cat thing solely because I think tough guys with cats is funnier than tough guys with dogs, because dogs, murder people.
Yeah.
Or they can, they you can make an attack dog. You really can't make an attack cat.
That'd be weird.
Yeah.
But I think that could add to the movies where it's like, oh, Sully and Nate now have a dog with them?
Yeah.
That adds so much.
The fact that Uncharted didn't have a dog character is kind of surprising. Like,
or if he had a pet monkey or lemur, something unique, but he didn't have anything like that.
Sully and Nate both strike me as dog guys.
Yeah.
In the games.
Yeah.
And it...
But Tom Holland does seem like a cat guy.
I believe he is. But I feel like all actors mostly are cat people, but that's because they're so busy. It's like, oh, cat can take care of itself kind of thing. I think it's like they would love a dog, but they just don't have the time.
Is that it?
That's my theory.
Okay. Not that they're like sissy little performance people.
No, nothing to do with that. But yeah, I think a dog would have been a better fit for this movie. Whether you include him in the adventure or not,
Yeah.
it just, even if it was just for that joke, it would have made a better joke than, I sure love Mr. Whiskers. Shut the fuck.
And it's like he's not even named after a historical thing, a type of jewel, anything. It's just Mr. Whiskers. Oh, what a funny cat name. Oh, you remember Mr. Bigglesworth? Let's do
It's
something.
what I was talking about of just being lazy.
Yeah.
You took something and what's the laziest cat name we can think of? Mr. Whiskers.
Yeah. Oh, what color is he? White? Okay, his name's Snowball or something. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, fine, yeah.
Yeah, very lazy, very stupid. On our classic scale of smash or pass, I'm going to say pass.
Pass
Yeah.
twice over.
Yeah. I mean, I am very impressed with Tom Holland's pull-ups that he did. Where it was like pulled up and then up a second time. That was very...
Yeah, I could work out some.
Yeah, I could take him. He's like 5'8". He's like a full inch shorter than me. So...
My only takeaway from this, and I pray to God, and I think we talked about it on here, that HBO just makes a really good Last of Us show.
Yeah.
They
will. There's no way it's going to be bad. I know I shouldn't say that. I should
don't
knock on wood, but like
don't jinx us.
But I think the lesson I learned from this, or studios will learn, are, well, Sonic and Detective Pikachu made a lot of money because they were kids' things. That's what video game movies need to be, kids' things. So Sonic will do good, Mario will do good. Anything that is a PG-13 or up, unless it truly, truly nails it, they'll just continue to tank and give video game movies a bad name.
Yeah. I mean, you could adapt something like Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human. Like, I know the whole point of that game is you don't know how that game's going to turn out because you make choices and your choices, but like you could just
take the best choices.
Just take the best choices and make that movie that you want to see and tell that story. Like, those things would be easily adaptable because it's not about big action scenes or anything. I mean, there are some in them.
You barely have to rewrite that.
Yeah.
You can pretty much adapt it straight away.
Whether that's a movie or a TV series, that'd be easy to do.
And I thought Uncharted was going to be the easiest one too, because the games are so cinematic and they're interesting and they have good stories and good characters. How do you fuck it up? All the work is there. And the only way you can fuck it up is with a bad cast.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
And that's, I think, if and when the backlash comes for Last of Us, it will be in the casting. It'll just be, they're good, but they're not Joel and Ellie, which, is just going to be people who like, I love Ellie, I love Joel, I love the voice actors and the way that, but now here's two people who, even though they're the same characters and maybe even encapsulate their characters' beings from the game, they're still going to go like, well, she doesn't look this way, or he doesn't speak this way.
Sure. They don't look like their characters, but
no.
I think they embody what the characters can be.
The girl who's playing Ellie looks more like Ellie. Yeah. I don't. She definitely fits, I think, the casting. But yeah, Pedro Pascal, who I do like, definitely is not who I expected to take that role.
No.
So just please be good, because Last of Us, I think, is my favorite. The Last of Us series is my favorite game series.
Yeah.
And I just hope that this series is just awesome and crushes it and does some things that surprise me, and we'll see. But that's this year.
What do you think about the casting if it was Sully was Sam Elliott and Nathan Drake was Liam Hemsworth? Both a little older, a little closer to the video game ages. I think that'd be a good combination.
Liam Hemsworth isn't bad. He just hasn't... Well, I mean, his brother never really led anything until he got Thor, and now he's the biggest...
but he's been in tons of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not really a leading man.
But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if Liam is a leading man.
I think he has the charisma. You give him that Nathan Drake swagger, I think he could pull that off.
And then I think Sam Elliott's a great choice, but it needed to be Sam Elliott like 15 years ago. Or, I mean, maybe even younger than that, because, I mean, Sam Elliott looked like an old man in Roadhouse, but he was,
He's always looked like an old man, but he's really not that
But he was like a hot old guy in Roadhouse, where now he just looks old.
He was born in 44, so he's
in
78.
his pushing
Okay.
80.
Okay. So I'll go back with my previous thing. George Clooney and Liam Hemsworth as Sully and Drake.
I think Clooney could pull off a Sully. I just don't think he would want to.
Yeah.
But if this is dream casting, I have no problem with George Clooney as Sully. I think he could do a pretty good job. Now, if you ask me who would I pick for...
No one asked you. If you'd like to reach us, you can... Who do you want to say, Steve?
No, I didn't have an idea. I was just I was trying to think of one.
Tom Selleck is like the basic older mustachioed man.
Yeah,
Tom
he's
the
clearly the vision for when they came up with Sully. Give us Tom Selleck-esque kind of character.
You know, maybe a pre-Jurassic World but post-Guardians Chris Pratt probably could have worked. I don't want Chris Pratt in this role at all, but that probably would work.
I don't want Chris Pratt either, but if I had to pick someone who I feel kind of looks like Nathan Drake and has the charisma of Nathan Drake, I think Chris Pratt really does fit the bill.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Star-Lord is very similar, I think, in a lot of ways to Nathan Drake. Yeah. It's just how much stuff do we... If we didn't see so much Chris Pratt movies, I think he would have been great. Yeah. But because we've seen him do this kind of character a bunch, I don't need to see him do it anymore.
Yeah. All right.
But now we get him as Mario. So we have that to look forward to.
Man, I want to go into the future and just pull that trailer. I just need to hear those voices. I need to see the animation style. It's going to be very unique.
Yeah. I'm fine, I think, with everyone's voices and not that I hate Chris Pratt's voice or Jack Black's voice for Bowser. I'm just interested to see if they do anything different with them.
Yeah.
I think Keegan-Michael Key can keep his voice. I think Anya Taylor-Joy can keep her voice. I think Charlie Day can keep his voice as Luigi.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any of those characters really need to change their voice. Yeah. I think you kind of have to with Mario and Bowser. Jack Black just...
No, I could see him doing a more...
Yeah, I mean, I think he would, but I just want to see.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and do you have anything else to say about Uncharted?
If you haven't played the games, play the games. Yeah. They're masterpieces. They get better with each one, in my opinion. The first one, a little dated, but story's lovely, and you'll have a great time.
I agree. And we probably won't be doing Sonic 2. So you may have to wait until The Last of Us show comes out or the Mario movie, whatever comes first. I'm sure it's The Last of Us show.
Yeah, I don't even know if they've started work on the Mario. Yeah. I mean, obviously they're working on it, but I imagine they're way off.
I think it's this December.
Is it really?
Mario.
I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Cut all this. Make it sound like I know shit.
Make it sound... Change, just like move your words around to make it sound...
Yes, I do. They come in now.
All right, well, if you want to get in contact with us for any reason, tell us your opinion on Uncharted and what's your favorite Uncharted game. We are on Twitter at WRPL Podcast, or you can email us. That is WRPLpodcast@gmail.com.
Like and subscribe. Don't be a naughty dog. Don't do it.
We appreciate everything and anybody who listens and anybody who wants to interact. We do this just for fun, and we appreciate all your support. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Have a good night, everyone.